and lived just 6 or 7 blocks from the Chiricella family home. The genealogical evidence was compelling, but it needed to be verified through traditional DNA testing. There was one significant problem. James Paul Forte had died in 1980, 42 years before the case was solved. He had suffered a heart attack at the age of 38 while working at a bar where he was employed. The investigators faced a crucial decision. To definitively prove that Forte was the killer, they would need to obtain a DNA sample from his remains. This would require exhuming his body, a dramatic and expensive step that needed to be justified by the strength of the evidence. But the case for exhumation was strong. Schubert's genealogical research had identified Forte as the most likely suspect. Traditional investigative techniques had confirmed that he had been in the right place at the right time. Additionally, investigators discovered that Forte had a history of violent behavior that made him a plausible suspect for such a crime. In 1974, Forte had been arrested on charges of rape and sexual assault. He had been given a plea deal for the less serious conviction of aggravated assault and was sentenced to 1 year of probation. In 1978, he was arrested again on charges of reckless endangerment and harassment. This pattern of behavior suggested someone capable of escalating to much more serious crimes. The decision to exhume Forte's body was approved in early 2022, nearly 58 years after Maurice's murder. The exhumation took place under carefully controlled conditions, with investigators collecting tissue samples that could be used for DNA analysis. The process was both expensive and emotionally challenging for everyone involved, but it represented the best chance of finally solving this cold case. The DNA analysis took several weeks to complete. Investigators had to extract usable DNA from tissue samples that were more than 40 years old, then compare it to DNA evidence from the crime scene, which was 58 years old. The process required sophisticated forensic techniques and careful analysis to ensure accurate results. On February 3, 2022, the results came back. The DNA from James Paul Forte's remains was a perfect match to the DNA evidence from Maurice Chiricella's murder. After nearly 58 years, the case had finally been solved. On February 10, 2022, Pennsylvania State Police held a press conference that would finally provide answers to one of the state's oldest cold cases. The room was packed with current and retired investigators, members of the Chiricella family, and media who had followed the case for decades. State Police Corporal Mark Barron, who had become the lead investigator on the case, stood at the podium with obvious emotion. "Today we can finally say that we know who killed Maurice Chiricella," he announced.